So if you're joining us today, it's probably because, well, you're looking for a way to navigate some of these big life changes, right?
Hmm,
But without, getting completely swamped by all the information out there. You just want the core insights.
exactly. And today we're diving deep into a phenomenon it's profound, but it often just goes completely undiscussed.
It really does.
We've looked at the research, the anecdotal feedback, all of it, and our sources call it the quiet shift. And this isn't just a theory. It's a real, very subtle feeling that's growing, and it's primarily affecting people over 55.
A demographic that, let's be honest, is often overlooked when we talk about modern life transitions.
Completely.
So our mission for this deep dive is to give you the full picture. We're going to unpack what this shift actually feels like, on a personal level.
And we're going to get into why it's happening, which is probably not what most people think.
Right. And then finally, we'll outline what the sources call this new path, a way to find some stability and meaning again, but without all the pressure of having to reinvent your entire life.
It's such a crucial topic because the power of this shift is that it starts so quietly. It's an internal thing, a solitary feeling, and that can lead people to think, I'm the only one going through this.
But you're not.
You are definitely not.
God.
The sources give that immediate validation. This is a widely shared experience among a really quiet but growing group of people.
Okay, so we'll move through this logically. First, let's define those subtle personal symptoms. Then we'll get into the validation that you're not alone.
And after that, a hard look at the external causes, why the old path broke down. And finally, the practical side of things. What does this new intentional path actually look like?
Perfect. So let's start right at the beginning. What does this shift actually feel like?
Well, what's so fascinating about the quiet shift is that it doesn't have those traditional markers of a midlife crisis or some big dramatic career change.
That's why they call it quiet, right? There's no big announcement. It just it creeps in. These softer feelings that build up over time into something really heavy.
Precisely. It's the lack of fanfare, but it's also the slow decline in feeling certain about things that, for decades, felt absolutely certain.
The one symptom in the sources that really stood out to me was this feeling that work suddenly feels heavier than it used to be.
Heavier, right?
Yeah, and they make a really sharp distinction. It's not that the work is harder, like intellectually, but it carries this greater emotional or logistical weight.
And that weight is a combination of factors. The sources suggest that for a lot of long-term professionals, it comes from this feeling that all their hard-won wisdom, their institutional knowledge, it's just being ignored.
In favor of the latest trend or some new digital metric.
Exactly. So you're still providing huge value, but the system for recognizing that value has just collapsed.
That's so frustrating. It feels like you constantly have to translate what you know into a new language just to get people to listen. And then you add on top of that the sheer effort you've put in for decades, that constant push, and suddenly the reward just doesn't feel worth it anymore.
The energy to return ratio has fundamentally changed.
Yeah.
It's just off. And then, right alongside that professional fatigue, you have the financial side.
Oh, yeah.
The research shows money starts to feel tighter, even though, structurally you're doing all the same things you always did. You haven't changed, but the ground beneath you feels less secure.
And all of that boils down to this one overarching emotional state of being, just profoundly tired.
And that's a crucial distinction they make. It's not being defeated. People aren't giving up.
No.
They're just tired of pushing so hard against a world that quietly changed the rules on them.
And that buildup of all these subtle changes, that's what leads to the core recognition, right? The moment that really defines the quiet shift.
It is. It's that realization of, okay, the way I structured my life, what I've been pursuing for decades, it needs to look fundamentally different now.
But, and this is so important, this isn't about blaming yourself. It's not that you didn't save enough or didn't work hard enough.
The sources are so careful about this framing. They really emphasize this feeling is not due to personal failure. It's a recognition that the basic deal, the idea that effort equals security, that deal has been broken by external forces.
So you've changed, but the world around you has also changed dramatically.
Both things are true.
And that right there, that provides so much validation. If you're feeling this, you are so far from being isolated. This deep dive is really for anyone who has spent their whole life just showing up.
Yes, the hardworking, steady people who've provided for their families, for their communities, they've earned the right to reassess things.
And they're reflecting on it with this startling honesty. I mean, we saw the same phrases popping up again and again in the feedback.
We did.
The one that really stuck with me for its quiet power was, I don't feel as secure as I used to. And you see that even from people who, on paper, should be totally fine financially.
It's an erosion of psychological security. That's what it is.
Yeah. And then there was the other one, the admission. I'm not sure the old path is the right path anymore.
And that statement is so powerful because it implies a loss of faith in structure, not in themselves.
Yeah.
There's this collective desire for something different.
Yeah.
You hear in the phrase, I want something simpler, something steadier, something I can actually count on.
And the research is so clear. These aren't complaints. They're honest reflections. They're assessments from people who have, frankly, earned the right to ask different, deeper questions now about how they want to live.
So the takeaway for you, if you're listening, is that you're part of this quiet, growing group, and you're all realizing the same thing. The next stage of life just requires a totally different approach than the last one.
It's a group that's really motivated to move forward, but they want something sustainable and intentional, not just more high-pressure hype, which sets the stage perfectly for the hard truth we have to get into now. If this feeling is real and it's so widely shared, why did the path that worked for so long, for people in their 30s, 40s, early 50s, why did it suddenly start to fail? The sources are very explicit that just admitting the old path doesn't work the same way anymore. It's the biggest psychological hurdle for most people over 55 to clear.
And we have to say it again because it's that important.
Yeah.
The cause is not age, and it is not ability.
Yeah.
It is not some internal decline.
No.
The sources put the blame squarely on rapid external world changes that just completely undermine the idea of stability.
Okay, so let's unpack those external forces. The entire landscape shifted over the last decade. What exactly made the foundations so shaky?
We're talking about global economics and technology basically working together. So first, the whole cost structure of life changed.
Yeah.
Costs went up dramatically for the big things: healthcare, housing, just the real cost of funding a retirement. While all the traditional security nets, like pensions or even just long-term job loyalty, they went down.
So you get this permanent sense of being behind, even if you're a high earner.
Always playing catch-up. And then job stability itself, especially for experienced professionals, it just became a relic.
The market just feels so unpredictable now, especially if you're not someone who wants to jump companies every 2 years. You put in decades of loyalty, and then you find out that loyalty has, like, zero market value.
And then you have the biggest disruptor of all, the one that comes up constantly: the pervasive friction of the digital world.
Friction, I like that word for it.
The sources don't just say technology changed. They say it pushed its way into everything, and often without offering a corresponding benefit to this demographic.
Can you elaborate on that friction? Like, what does that look like in real terms?
It's the sheer exhaustion of managing a world that requires constant administrative work just to function. You know, the digital world demands complex passwords, two-factor authentications for everything, constant software updates, and job applications that make you force decades of experience into these rigid, terrible online forms.
That rings so true. It means that basic things, banking, talking to your doctor, applying for a job, which used to be straightforward human conversations, now you have to navigate these complex, often really irritating systems.
It adds friction to things that used to feel certain. And the research highlights that for many people who spent their careers specializing in one thing, the sudden demand to also become an expert in, like personal digital marketing or social media, just to stay relevant, feels exhausting.
And inauthentic.
Completely antithetical to their core values.
So all of a sudden, the life structure that felt rock solid a decade ago now feels inherently shaky. There's economic pressure, there's digital overhead. The path that was supposed to carry you to the next phase is just vibrating under your feet.
But this realization, as alarming as it is at first, the sources frame it as a critical starting point. This breakdown isn't the end of something, it's the beginning of a new way of living.
It's a chance to build something that's actually more aligned with what you want now.
Exactly. Something simpler, something steadier than that old high-pressure grind ever was.
That transition leads us right into the new path. But first, we really have to address the cultural myths, right? Because when someone over 55 feels this quiet shift, society's message is often, you need a radical overhaul.
And the sources push back so hard on that, they are crystal clear. This new path does not require complete reinvention. You don't have to become some totally new person or a digital nomad.
Nor does it require starting from scratch. And thank goodness it doesn't involve competing with the younger people online, chasing trends, or getting into the latest hype cycle that just feels fake.
The whole essence of this new path, as the sources describe it, is its quietness, its deep intentionality. It's a calmer, more focused approach.
And it's aimed at what, exactly?
Right. It's aimed at replacing the security and control that the old world took away, but doing it on your own terms and, importantly, by leveraging the expertise you already have.
Okay, so if we look at the internal goals here, they are stability, clarity, and meaning. The main goal seems to be taking back control of your time and your future, but without all the stress and the public performance.
It's practical, grounded ambition. It's about resilience and integrating what, not revolution, means looking at your unique skill set and asking a different question.
Which is?
How can I decouple my knowledge from this traditional employer-employee structure that's proven to be so unstable?
And the sources give some great concrete examples of how this actually plays out, which is what people need to hear. This isn't just theory.
Right. These are actual strategies. For many, it means creating a small, defined income stream online, but in a very targeted way. It's not about getting huge volume.
It's about supplementary, dependable revenue.
Exactly. Often through something like fractional consulting, selling a small slice of your specialized knowledge to just a handful of clients who really need it.
I also noticed they highlighted structured online teaching, taking that really specific professional knowledge like engineering compliance or advanced editing and offering short, high-value courses to small groups. You're leveraging your status as an expert.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For others, though, the answer is radical simplifying, streamlining your life, your obligations, your possessions to just drastically reduce complexity and, most importantly, cost.
So you reduce your high consumer debt, you shed unnecessary financial burdens.
And by doing that, you create an internal stability that the external world can't touch.
So stability is found by shrinking your need for a massive, unpredictable income rather than chasing one in a volatile world.
Precisely. And then finally, there's the goal of learning a specific valued skill that provides real independence, something tangible you can rely on no matter what the market does.
It's like a return to core competence, building your own little fortress of specialized skill. And sometimes the new path is just about having something consistent to rely on, whatever that may be, a steady structure to balance out the world's chaos. It sounds less like a desperate career pivot and more like a really thoughtful, values-driven recalibration.
It is the rebuilding of a secure foundation, one that respects the reality that, yes, the external world has changed and that your own priorities have rightfully changed too. It's about using wisdom to design a better life.
We've covered so much here, from the subtle signs of the quiet shift, that heaviness of work, the financial erosion, to the huge external forces that made the old path unstable, like digital friction and economic shifts. I think the key takeaway is really one of simple reassurance. This shift is a necessary transition toward a more aligned way of living, and you are absolutely not walking this shift alone.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, what really stands out is how pervasive that feeling of being left behind is among so many steady, dedicated people who go through this. The modern world just sped up and left a lot of the reliable structures in the dust. But understanding that feeling of being left behind isn't just a side effect. It's a critical first step. It's the motivation you need to figure out what practical, intentional steps you can actually take to bridge that gap, to build that quieter, steadier path on your own terms. And that's really the thought to mull over as you go about your day.